Greetings. This is the Get To Free Press, and I'm George Boston Rhymes. For the last few weeks, I have not been publishing many videos. I've been out of town. I've been working, recording down in Kingsland, Georgia, wherein Tony Green was shot several times, a couple times in the back. The white judge released the police officer, Zachariah Presley, on bond. We were there for the bond hearing, and I just posted a video concerning that young man's death. Another young man to die in the war zone of America. Then I journeyed up to Omaha, Nebraska, and while there in Omaha, I met some family members, I met some friends and individual, Mr. Marshall with a bookstore, black bookstore, and I was very impressed with the work him and his wife is doing there. And I was led over and given a tour of the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation, and I'm about to put that video up sometimes today or tomorrow, and I want you to sit back and enjoy. This is an introduction to why the Get To Free Press kind of been laying low lately. Let me regress back to Kingsland, Georgia. I met a beautiful sister there. I'm going to reserve her name and let her give it to you. I'm going to be posting that video in a few minutes. In fact, I will put this video in front of it. But I recorded it much earlier in 3 different segments, and I did that because when we went over there for the bond hearing and for the funeral and for the town hall meeting, I got to talk with this young lady, and I recorded her, but I never posted her video because I wanted it to be a reflection of the work that Attorney Malik Shabazz has done here in South Georgia since he's been coming here. He's also been here with the Kendrick Johnson case in Valdosta, Lowndes County Judicial Complex. And so I just wanted him to be in that particular video so you will see him embrace the people who are working there in the museum of the Thiokol memorial work that's being done. So today I want to say to you that I'm here because I want you informed. I've come to the conclusion that CNN, MSNBC, even with Al Sharpton, although he's a black man, and I'm not criticizing my brother, but I believe that I can produce and back up everything that I'm saying, that too often the news in the black community is not being published, and it seems as if though there's nothing we can do about it, because white people, they are getting bold in what they attempt to carry on the old Jim Crow laws. And so we must understand that we cannot blame anybody but ourselves. And so I want to quit what I'm doing. I don't get paid for it. I very seldom even receive words of appreciation. But you who do appreciate it, you tell me. But for the most part, a lot of black people do not care about other blacks who put themselves on the line to try to keep the history alive for our children and coming generations. Some of us seem to not appreciate social media, who will bring the news to you on Facebook, will present it to you on Instagram, but your mainstream news media say the hell with black people and the hell with their news, and we won't connect the dots, and they make us look silly and stupid and ignorant when we know our minds are some of the best minds that God has ever produced. In the pyramids, and so much of our knowledge has been lost because we relied on white people to publish it, and they did just that. They published what they wanted, and they excluded the beef of the cow that we needed in order to survive. And so it's a new day among us. Thank God for social media. Thank God for Black Lives Matter. Thank God for the white right people who can see beyond the forest. They are white people that embraces me while others call me a racist. They sit and they just say, George, what in the hell wrong with those people? And I'm not saying that as a cover. You know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about white people who will go with me, who will support me, who will back me when black folk will not even go to Mississippi when they can afford it. And some black folk got plenty of money. Some black folks will never do what I'm doing, but we benefit. But they benefit from what we do. Their children benefit. Their children are able to walk into jobs and not have to fight for that job because of what people like me and what people like Reverend Rose and others are doing. Rich black folk. We are making it better for them. Just like Martin Luther King made it better for many of us. And I don't like giving Martin Luther King that much credit because there was others who came before Martin Luther King that did great work. It's just that the timing was right and the shoe was able to fit because others who had traveled a great line of Holy Divine. Let me close this out now, and I'm going to take you right into a chemical plant in Woodbine, Georgia, where they made munitions, some type of explosive material during the Vietnam War. And I want you to watch and see how these black people, 29 to 30, was killed, and they haven't gotten what they deserve. And so when I went there and I saw this, I just had to say something. I'm going to be honest with you. I'd never heard of that. I'm just being honest with you. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to do my best to spread it to everybody who don't know anything about it.
Yo, if I had 100 sheep and one of them got away, I would leave the 99 and go find that one. That's right. Look from the locks and jaws of Satan, I come creating, penetrating with force from the land of the lost. I'm coming like Muhammad got the devil on the run. Rising like the sun, keep your eyes on the one on the base. Live to bring forth a reborn nation, up against the norm, creating a new formation. This foundation that I be standing on is firm. Look, yo, we must learn.
I'd like to thank you for coming in and interviewing us and helping us to spread the word and share this history and legacy, and for the introduction to the people that can help us support and share this with the American public and with the world.
And I want to thank you for all the work that you've done and continuously are doing for the betterment of this community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm in Kingsland, Georgia, and this is, what museum is this?
Thiokol Memorial Museum.
And what's your name?
Janie Everett.
And I have already recorded much information from this museum, but I just want to do an introduction to all of this history, and including videos that has been presented to me and to the American people. But I want to know something about you before we enjoy this video. What's your name again?
My name is Janie Everett.
And where were you born?
I was born right here in Camden County in Woodbine. Okay. That's the address for Colesboro. That's the Colesboro community.
Okay. And when I came here the first day, and here again, all this is already in the video, but you were so full of information. And since I have gotten to know you a little better, tell me about what makes you tick and what makes you stick with this museum and even have ideas for a thoroughfare in terms of highway. But before we get into the video, just tell us a little bit about the person who walk around, give tours at family reunion, as we're going to show in a few minutes here. What makes you tick, girl?
Well, I was born and raised in the community of Colesboro, and many of the people involved in this history are people that I knew. They were the parents of my classmates, many of them that were lost on February 3rd, 1971. Also, these people were the upperclassmen at Ralph J. Bunch. I went to a all-black school, Ralph J. Bunch, beginning in the 1st grade. So I watched these people grow into the gracious human beings that they became, and they were inspiring. Many of the people that were killed on February the 3rd, especially Miss Ethel Banks, she made my baptism gown.
When you say killed, how was she killed? Oh, this is the beginning of the video. I'd like for you to...
She was killed in the explosion
at where?
At Thiokol. That's the Woodbine Thiokol chemical plant.
Okay.
On February the 3rd. And she was a member of Enterprise Baptist Church. She made my baptism gown. She and Miss Brunswick, they witnessed the most important day in my life, the day I accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior at Enterprise Baptist Church. So these people meant something to me, but especially I lead this project because the one person that knows me the best, that I love the most, my mother. My mother's life was spared that day. She was one of the women, the manufacturers in M132, and she was really heartbroken that she lost her fellow co-workers in this explosion. And God spared her life. And as always, the best thing in life to do is when God grants you grace, something that you cannot earn, that you say, thank you, God. And it was God's grace that brought 15 cities here, the Army, the Navy, and the Coast Guard, and Ma and Pa in their pickup trucks. We all band together in unity to spare life and to fortify and reassure the children that everything would be all right.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the video in a minute. But when a person walks into this museum and they look over and see compassion, what does compassion mean to you in terms of what's displayed beneath it there?
Well, compassion to me means that, like in America, we're separated by oceans from other countries. That's physical. But the greatest separation for America, for me, after traveling around the world, is that sense of doing right. That compassion that we have, the empathy. When you strike one American, you strike them all.
Okay. Looking around the museum, and when a person look over at unity, what is unity to you?
Unity is everyone banding together for the good of another person. And without Twitter, without Facebook, no telephone service. God's grace brought 15 cities, stood up 14 hospitals, 3 states, military and civilians came together. It didn't matter what you had. Like the people here in the local community, they got their pickup trucks, their station wagons. We only had 3 ambulances under the funeral homes at that time to service 600 workers.
So they came together and got it done.
So they all came together. But the base root thing is also, this was a unified workforce. The first of its kind, or one of the pioneers in American history. A woman could earn a wage, and the men wanted to see them succeed.
Okay, and you're going to get into that in the video. Then courage. I look down, I see courage. And what does courage mean to you? I see that on the wall.
Courage is all of the police and fire departments from the 15 cities that came together, their leadership, and the individual efforts. You'll also see in courage Miss Dorothy Peoples, she was the first person to receive that call, the radio call for help. You'll see encourage Ferndina. Ferndina was the city, the good neighbor that put up the distress call that was intercepted. You'll see Savannah. Savannah police, escorted by the Georgia State Patrol. They brought down 45 pints of blood to Brunswick. So everybody, this is courage. They knew they had an emergency, yet they set aside the sense of self and band together to help.
I see honor.
Well, honor is one of the goals of this organization. We say that we want to remember, honor, and educate. Honor is every step that we have taken to honor and remember these incredible people in American history.
St. Luke 4:18 talks about the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, etc., etc. I even see spirit. Break that down for me.
You know, spirit is how the human spirit rose up and overcame complete devastation. The community band together. When this explosion happened and the children were left behind, even after this great, incredible response to this emergency by the 15 cities, the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Social Security, everybody together, and a president of the United States and the American people. We had everyday people taking in children. The community got together and they actually opened a daycare center within 45 days of the explosion. So this is how that overwhelming human spirit rose up and overcame devastation.
I see commitment in the corner.
Commitment is an exhibit about the Thiokol workers. These workers were committed. Now, prior to the explosion, they had been exposed to what they thought was flammable material. The material's nature was actually not C2 but C7 explosive. And so commitment talks about the Thiokol workers before the explosion, after the explosion, and even within 1 year after the explosion, they rebuilt the buildings torn down by the M132 explosion. When M132 exploded at 10:53 a.m. on February 3rd, 1971, it took building M142, M131, and M140 with it. Several buildings were torn down.
Okay. And faces of patriotism is a lot of human beings.
Chemical plant.
How many you say work there?
There were 600.
Okay.
And of the 600, there were 60 women working in M132 that morning of the explosion. They were actually the manufacturers. And they were fulfilling a national cause. They were supplying the troops with the trip flares needed. See, Thiokol chemical plant, they manufactured the CS deterrent gas, the 81 millimeters, the 60 millimeters, and the trip flares. They did some farming chemicals, but their main job was to supply our troops in accordance with Article 1 of the Constitution.
Okay, and what's behind me above my head?
That's Chronicle.
Okay.
It
Close us out with that.
Chronicle begins with Thiokol's introduction into the Southeast. It was the attitude of the people, the 50-year hurricane plan, the easy access to deep water that brought Thiokol chemical plant or operations to Camden County. They began in the 1960s. They purchased 7,400 acres of land, which was formerly the Floyd Plantation. And they did a test on February 27, 1965, of a solid propel rocket engine preparing to support NASA. And then shortly thereafter, NASA decided to go with liquid propelled rocket engines. And so Thiokol renegotiated that ingenuity of making America first and serving America. They bidded for a contract and won a contract making munitions for the United States Army.
Okay, you are giving an overview of the film that we're going to present here now. And so in closing, my question is this. Where do you see your future? No. Where do you see this museum in years to come?
Well, in years to come, we're hoping that America would gain a sense of empowerment from this history, that we together will be able to preserve this history by establishing a Thiokol Memorial National Park along Interstate I-95 here in Camden County, preferably the north end of the county to grow it some. But we want to have a national park which includes a monument, education center, and a museum. The museum will be dedicated to sharing the history of the firefighters, police officers, and hospitals from the 15 cities. There will be the history of the plant and their manufacturing and the individual workers. The education center will have a disciplined teaching which will contain information for students in chemistry, law, medical, emergency response by sharing the history of the 17-year court case. The monument will depict women and men working together and that unity. They wanted to see each other succeed. Also, what we want to do is have the President of the United States recognize the contribution of these 30 workers by awarding them the Presidential Freedom Award. This is not something that is given. This is something that was earned. Their work saved the lives of thousands of our soldiers and helped liberate and bring democracy to millions of South Vietnamese citizens. So this is humanitarian. This is their contribution and how they paved the way to modern America.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah. Oh, okay.
How y'all doing today?
Hi.
Good. What's going on over here today?
This is Thiokol Memorial. It's dedicated to the 21 women and 8 men that were killed at the Thiokol site. There were 600 workers at the site. They were the people that moved ahead after Title VII in the Civil Rights era. And these people were the people, for the first time, a woman could get a job and earn a wage. And they were the people that made the munitions for Vietnam. They were killed here in 1971. And 15 cities, 14 hospitals stood up to care for the workers. And this is our museum, and you're welcome to come in. Yeah. We're trying to get the county and the state to dedicate Exit 7 to these people in memory of them. And that's along the Purple Heart Trail. The Purple Heart Trail, dedicated to the soldiers. We also would like them to dedicate that exit to the people that saved the lives of our soldiers in Vietnam and promoted democracy and helped free the people of South Vietnam.
Okay, will you be busy after the ceremony?
Oh no, I'll be right here.
Because I would like to come back here and do an interview on you.
Okay,
thank you. Okay, we'll be back and get it. Thank you, back.
Lacrosse, a highly accurate general support field artillery guided missile for use in close tactical support of ground troops against hard-point targets such as fortified positions. Honest John, designed to provide fire support for ground combat operations, is a free-flight rocket with a range equivalent to that of medium to long-range artillery. Sergeant, a surface-to-surface guided missile which extends the range of artillery, making available to the field commander greater firepower to reach deeper into the enemy rear areas.
Okay, what's your name?
Janie.
Okay, Jane, I made a promise to you I was going to come back, so will you take me in and kind of show me a little bit of what you were talking about earlier?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Thiokol Memorial Museum. It's a museum that tells the history of the people that paved the way to modern America. As you can see, our walls along the side is with the theme. The gray is the trials and the tribulations of the workers. They subdued a lot and went
Let's
through a
start
lot.
here. Tell me about compassion. Let's start here.
Compassion is how an entire region and a nation came together in the Thiokol disaster. We have a telegram here from President Nixon. It's dated February the 5th, 1971. The explosion occurred on February 3rd, 1971.
Okay, what explosion?
The explosion was at Thiokol Chemical Plant. It occurred at 10:53 a.m. There were 600 workers at the plant. They were making the munitions for Vietnam. They made the 81 millimeter, the trip flares.
Right here?
Right here in Camden County. They made the 60 millimeters, the CS deterrent gases.
Is that why these
Yes, they're suited out the way the ladies suited out and the men suited out to produce the CS gas for the troops fighting in Vietnam. See, actually, Thiokol came here in the 1960s to make solid propelled rocket engines for NASA. And what happened is NASA decided not to go with solid. They decided to go with liquid. And so that put Thiokol out of gas, so they bid it and got a contract from the U.S. Army to make 750,000 trip flares. Then they made the 81 millimeters. Well, when this disaster happened, there were 60 women working in M132. They were producing the trip flares for the United States Army. And the great thing about it is this was the first time that a woman in American history could make an hourly wage in industry. And so these women were making the munitions for Vietnam. They were fighting fires every day. It was quota work. So they would have a fire. And they would run out of the building and the men would come in, put the fire out, and give the all clear, and the ladies would come back in to work. So this was the first time men and women, black and white, worked together in American industry. This was after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which contained Title VII.
A question before we go further. If you had not, who discovered this or set this up and carried it on? How did this generate?
Well, what happened is, actually, if you look closely at this...
let's go down this side. If we'll come back and get that.
Okay.
Or I'll get that side. Go ahead. We'll take that. Go on that side. Go
okay. Chronicle is an exhibit that shows the beginning of Thiokol here in Camden County. They did have a successful test in 1965, and then after this 1965 test, and the test was a success. It was a success. And then NASA decided to go the other way. They got the munitions contract, and then the plant blew up in 1971. And the first year of this, after the explosion, we had a memorial service. It was held at Ralph J. Bunch High School, and they remembered the 29 people killed. There were 29 to 100 people, 29 people killed, almost 100 people injured, and we only had a 19-bed hospital. So that brought to Camden County 15 cities, 3 states, 15 cities, the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Red Cross. Every level of government, Ma and Pa jumped in their pickup trucks. We only had 3 ambulances in the entire county, and they were under the direction of the funeral homes.
Okay.
So the impact of what happened to our people on February 3rd, 1971 changed America forever. Jacksonville, the city of Jacksonville, was awarded $300,000 in 1971 after responding to Thiokol. And they taught America how to respond to a 911 call. All ambulances were taken from under the funeral homes and put under the direction of the cities and the counties. and Jacksonville demanded that EMT riders be placed on the ambulances, and they taught America how to respond to a 911 call.
Okay.
Also, during this explosion, when these people were injured.
Let me pause right here.
Yes.
I didn't mean to be rude, but you know Malik Shabazz? He is a national, if not international, civil rights attorney. Okay. I wanted him to step in so he could have heard more about this.
Okay.
And so I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's why I did what I did. Okay.
Okay. Well, maybe,
so you can continue.
Someone should go in and have him come in.
Well, I tried to, but I think he's in a hurry.
Is that him?
Come on. No, that's not him. This is Barbara Worthy. Come on, Barbara Worthy. You're not in a hurry, are you? Come on in. Barbara Worthy is with Malik. I'm going to ask you to stand with her if you don't mind. I'm trying to get Malik in here. This is his story. Very historic. Wait on. If you can come in. Okay, Malik, I know he's in a hurry, but I just wanted, will you give him a synopsis of what this is all about? I just wanted him to know, because he's the man that should know. Tell him about this place and what it's about.
This is Thiokol Memorial Project, and we're dedicated to remembering and honoring the Thiokol plant workers. And these workers were the first workers in American history where a woman could earn an hourly wage. Prior to 1964 and Title VII, they couldn't work without the permission of their husbands, even though they were some of them were highly educated. And so on February 3rd, 1971, 21 women were killed. They were the manufacturers of the munitions for Vietnam.
Killed where? And killed in the factory?
Killed here in Camden County.
Because of an accident?
No, it wasn't an accident.
Go back to where you went with here.
What was it? The explosion?
It was an explosion. The cause of the explosion was that the material they was working with was C7 versus C2. They were told that it was flammable. C2, actually,
and it was C7, inherently highly explosive.
Highly explosive, and the case went on for more than 17 years.
And what happened?
And what happened basically was that they were fighting in Brunswick under federal court. Thiokol was the same contractor that was over Challenger. Almost 15 years to the day after this plant blew up, Challenger went up January 30th, 1986.
What was the conclusion of the case?
The conclusion of the case was that these people sued for $700 million. Judge Lawrence awarded them $465 million. They waited Judge Lawrence out. He died. They reduced it to $25 million after 17 years. Some people never got paid.
Because they passed.
Well, no, some people never got paid because they said, oh, some of them they filed after the statute of limitations, or they filed improperly.
Technical defects.
Yeah, and they had like 100 people injured, and the 29 people that was killed. We have women around here now that have one leg, one arm. Miss Dolores Butler right now, she can only turn her head. I've been going visiting her. They cut off her Social Security, her Medicare. We had to do a congressional complaint in order to get her medical coverage. But she was injured that day. Miss Emma Lou that's sitting right over there, she survived the explosion. So there are people that are still suffering even though we have normalized relations with South Vietnam and awarded them $123 million and another $90 million to clean up the cluster bombs and the effects of Vietnam. And our president has met with people that are broken bone and broken body. Our people, what we're asking them to do is remember them in history. Because of the impact of what happened to them, we have the 911 system. We only had 3 ambulances when this place blew up, and it was under the funeral home's direction. Jacksonville got $300,000 after responding to Thiokol. This was an all-out effort. 600 workers. We had 3 states, 15 cities, 14 hospitals. The Army, Navy, and the Coast Guard came here because the people that had control of the land would not let I-95 cross through Camden County. Wow. So the Navy had to fly overhead. They did this emergency on this road, Highway 17, crossing the little blue bridge. I know because my mother survived it.
And so this center comes about as a result of this settlement?
No, this center comes about because these people that you see...
Wait, excuse me. Why don't you go tell me about the Vietnam?
I got to get to the courthouse, but this is fascinating.
These people the women made the weapons for Vietnam.
That's
right. I understand.
They did the CS gas, they did the 81 millimeters, the trip flares, the 60 millimeter, and
so this is dedicated to their memory.
Dedicated to their memory, and on July 17th next month, we have asked them to dedicate Exit 7, which is Harris Bluff Road. That's the road that goes from 17 straight into the gate.
To what? What you want to call it?
Well, we wanted to call it Thiokol Memorial Parkway, but we want to dedicate the exit to all 30 of the people that was killed. The 29 in 1971 and the one person in 1973. These people did not stop making the weapons because they lost 4 buildings and the people that were involved. They fought the case. They went back to work because the soldiers needed them. When you hear Vietnam veterans say their life was saved by the work that was done by these people of meager beginnings, it's a meaning. And they also upheld a national cause, and you have millions of people that are free now because they supported democracy. The men were gone, the women were here, and after Title VII, they got the right to get a job. M132 was a building of all women manufacturing. And when the governor of the state recognized them...
What percentage black ones?
Almost totally all of them.
That was a segregated women's workplace.
Well, no, they were integrated, but the black women that you see here, there was only 2 white women that was killed in the explosion.
How do you want our help? I support you all the way. You give me awesome history. I got to go to the courthouse, but I mean, how can how do you want our help?
Well, we want the President of the United States to award these people the Presidential Freedom Award. We want a national park to be formed along I-95.
Can I give you my number? If you want letters of support from Black Lawyers for Justice or anything I can do from Washington, D.C., I want to support you because I like the way you articulate that history, and I just like your passion.
Well, I mean, we've been on national radio.
Let me write my number for you. I'll help you. Any way I can help
Well,
you, help get your cause out. If I can write some letters of support, get petitions for you, I'll help you.
Thank you.
I'll help you. Let me give you my number. You got it. I think I have it. Well, I don't want to just, your cards are so nice. Lord, you're working all right.
Some paper? Yeah. Well, we have an annual event. This past year, Edward Waters College came here and they performed. We remember all of the workers and all of the firefighters, police officers, and nurses. We only had a 19-bed hospital and 3 ambulances. And those 15 cities and 3 states that came here to save lives, we want everybody remembered. We want a national park.
Tell me what you want, and Black Lawyers for Justice will help you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
I hate to be short because, seriously, you're teaching me history, and I like your details. But
Well,
I got to go to the courthouse and deal with these other
I'm going to have to go, too, but I wanted him into it, and you will see me again. I'm going to take out one day, and I'm going to come in.
Here, at the Thiokol plant, who were making munitions for Vietnam, and they were probably grossly negligent, I'm sure, gross negligence, in allowing all of the sisters to be working around high explosives, and they had told them that it was a non-high explosive, that it was something else they were working on, when really they were working on extremely dangerous equipment without the proper safeguards and precautions, and many lost their lives. And our beloved curator, is that right, Dakari?
Yes.
The curator here has preserved the history and legacy and fighting for street names and other recognition. And I want to say that Black Lawyers for Justice supports her. This God has brought us here to her this afternoon. All right? Seriously, you do have my support. Bless you. I'm a little sweaty. Outside. Bless you. Keep that strong history up.
It is labeled one of the worst industrial disasters in the U.S. in the last 100 years. It's the Thiokol plant explosion, which occurred in Woodbine, Georgia, and it changed the lives of people in the community and the country forever. as Camden County celebrated its 45th anniversary today. It was also the first time that the state of Georgia recognized the victims and the first responders involved in the explosion. Channel 4's Nicole Schneider has more on the celebration and how people are continuing to preserve the history.
May Hazel Davis.
It was such a close-knit family, and you knew a lot of them. And when you think about them, you say, God, did this really happen? But it really happened.
29 workers at the Thiokol plant were killed in an explosion in 1971. All made trip flares for soldiers to use in the Vietnam War. Building 132 was designated to hold the assembly line where much of the ammunition was stored. It was there the explosion happened.
Yes, it was so loud, it shook the building. Some of the people fell off the stool that they were sitting on because it was just that powerful.
Emma Gibbs, who worked at the plant, was only a block down from what she recalls as an earth-shattering bang.
I could have been one of those because I was working in 132, and they transferred me that Monday to be a lead person at 129.
Let me stand.
By celebrating the 45th anniversary of the explosion, the community is hoping to keep the past alive. Another way people are preserving the history of the explosion is through the Thiokol Memorial Project. A group of about 50 people are collecting artifacts and information in hopes of one day opening a museum.
This is a telegram from President Nixon.
Janie Everett is the force behind the Thiokol Memorial Project. She is pushing to get a memorial made at the Education Center in D.C. and for the 29 people to be nominated for the Presidential Freedom Award.
The workers, they're up in their 70s and 80 years old. The first-hand account will be lost from us. There have been other people writing things about the response, but you have never really heard from the workers themselves.
Hear how these small-town country folks.
Right now, the organization is in the process of having a documentary made, a way for the 29 to never be forgotten.
Praise you, we glorify your holy name, oh God. Lord, we thank you, Lord Jesus, for being in the midst, God, in the name of Jesus. And Lord, we praise you right now, God, for just looking upon our family, God. And look upon all of them that are joined together this morning, oh God. Lord, every man, woman, and child, God, we praise you right now for covering us under your blood. God, we thank you, Lord, for the closeness, oh God, and the connection, Lord, with the community, Lord, and with our family, God. And Lord, we just want to praise you. God, we thank you, Lord, for the love that you have for our family and the love that we have for you, Lord. And God, we praise you right now, God, for the love that we have for one another, Lord, in the name of Jesus. Bless us, oh God, in this family reunion, oh God. Lord Jesus, if we had any disconnection, oh God, Lord, let us be connected during this time, oh God, in the name of Jesus. And Lord, we praise you right now. We ask, God, that you pour your spirit out upon all of us, God, in the name of Jesus. Lord, we just want to thank you. We praise you, Lord Jesus, for this museum. Bless this museum. Bless the director, oh God. Bless all the workers, oh God. And Lord, we praise you right now for being here. And Lord, go with us through the remaining of our reunion, God. And Lord, we just want to thank you. We praise you. We glorify your holy name, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Welcome to the museum. This book, as you all know, is the Camden County History book. It's called the Camden Challenge. It has a lot of truth in it. It talks about Aaron and Luvenia, which I call the Andyson. Mm-hmm. The history is on page 502, and it lists all of their children. It talks about Thomas Luke, and we are all descendants of Thomas Luke. Thomas Luke.
Can you buy that?
Yes, it's a $40 book. They sell it at the Bryan Lane Historical Society. You can look through it. And what happens is that book has a lot of truth. And every time we have a family reunion, guess what? Janie takes all of your literature that you leave, you know, that's passed out at the reunion, I take it down to the Bryan Lane and I sign it over, the rights to it, to the Bryan Lane, so that years from now, when we're all gone away, our children and descendants can go down and gather that history. Okay? So, as a family, we have a section that's called Lucas Hill Rudolph. And, you know, and after every reunion, I go down and whether it's a video or a program from the banquet or an agenda from the banquet or from the family reunion, I go in and sign the rights over to the Historical Society. Every time someone dies in the family, it's advisable that you take the obituary and file it at the Bryan Lane under your family name. So this is family history. Our history in this county is this. In 1845, Alexander Lucas was born. In 1853, Cedric Rudolph was born. In 1870, Thomas Luke. He's a freed man. He's in the records under the St. Tilla district. Thomas Luke was married to Hannah Allen. He was freed in 1870 at 44 years old. When you look in that Camden County history book, under churches, Enterprise Baptist Church, they call him Tom Luke, but he was Thomas Luke. In Walkersmore, he's an inaugural member in 1874 of Enterprise Baptist Church. So our bloodline is the bloodline of a freed man. He was freed. His wife, Hannah Allen, was never freed. And so we're going to begin the history of Thiokol and how we interact with Thiokol. This is our logo here. You have encased around the logo, this is a solid gold. That's God. That's the symbolism. The gray, which when we came into this building, the walls were white. We made the walls gray to match the clouds here. This is the trials and tribulations of the workers. Every day they were exposed to danger and chemical damage. Here we have the yellow, which you see in the back here. That's the grace of God. The purple is the workers. They were the true believers and followers of Jesus Christ. They were responsible people. And this brown here is the ground. They were earth-bound people, but they were the true believers and followers of Jesus Christ. And in that ground is engraved the disaster date, February 3rd, 1971. So not only do you have what we did, we took from our logo, actually, when you come into the museum, you're facing the trials and tribulations of the workers and then the grace of God. And you will see throughout this history how all of that works together. Now, Thiokol came to Camden County in 1962, and they bought 7,400 acres of land. That 7,400 acres of land, they purchased it from Brunswick Pulp and Paper. And it's at the end of Harris Bluff Road. It's what we call horse pen. At 7,400 acres, it used to be the Floyd Plantation, okay? They came here to make the solid propelled rocket engines for NASA, and the test that they actually did on February 27, 1965, that test was successful, and that test was carried in Time magazine as a success. But the problem is, they were successful. Their plan was to make solid propelled rocket engines, test them, put them on the barge, take them out Todd Creek, float them out, deep water access is there, make a right turn, and float them down to NASA. But when that test was completed, which you will see, there's Time magazine with Sinatra on the front, page number 73. It shows the test. Here's the test right here. That's Thiokol. There are all the witnesses and all the equipment from the plant. We have it back there, the actual test, where all the people were invited, white people only, that took the Greyhound buses, went out and witnessed that test. The test was a success, but NASA decided we're not going to go with solid propelled rocket engines. We're going to go with liquid. That put Thiokol out of gas. But Thiokol had 7,400 acres. They had invested $10 million. The people here wanted to work. They reached back and went to the Defense Department, and the Defense Department gave them a contract to produce munitions during the Vietnam War.
Lacrosse, a highly accurate general support field artillery guided missile for use in close tactical support of ground troops against hard-point targets such as fortified positions. Honest John, designed to provide fire support for ground combat operations, is a free-flight rocket with a range equivalent to that of medium to long-range artillery. Sergeant, a surface-to-surface guided missile which extends the range of artillery, making available to the field commander greater firepower to reach deeper into the enemy rear areas. Pershing, a large inertially guided ballistic missile with the mobility of smaller missiles, but which packs a powerful punch over distances far in excess of the longest range of our artillery capability. Hawk is an anti-aircraft weapon system designed to defend troops in the field against enemy attacking aircraft flying at low altitudes. Nike Hercules soars to altitudes in excess of 100,000 feet over a range of 75 miles and is a high-level anti-aircraft missile. Nike Zeus, now in an advanced stage of research and development, is designed to leap up to extreme altitudes almost instantaneously to defend against enemy long-range ballistic missiles coming toward a target from any direction at speeds in excess of 15,000 miles an hour. The new generation solid fuel missiles augment the already in the field liquid fuel missile systems such as the surface-to-surface Corporal and Redstone, a kind of synthetic rubber commercially produced by the Thiokol Chemical Corporation, was an excellent rocket fuel that would harden and bond itself directly to the wall of the rocket case. Thus was born a practical concept of solid fuel, shown here in a mixer. At the Army's Redstone arsenal, close liaison with industry then provided the Army with further research and development on solid fuel technology. In 1948, an Army industrial team undertook the production of a case-bonded solid propellant rocket motor. The program was a success, making possible a new generation of solid fuel missiles. Some of America's leading scientists have been teammates with the Army and have made contributions to solid fuel technology. One of the pioneers in this field, who will explain how a solid fuel motor operates, is the past president of the American Rocket Society and Thiokol's vice president in charge of rocket operations, Dr. Harold W. Ritchie. The controlled atmosphere and smooth ride of the nuclear submarine provides a far-ranging launching vehicle for our defense.
They came here in 62. The test was in 65. But in the summer of 1964, the one thing that we all prayed for and hoped for was this, that women would finally be freed. Now, people talk about the Civil Rights Act. But let me tell you something. The Civil Rights Act, it put down Jim Crow's law, okay? But in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the important thing is Title VII. Remember, I told you that Thomas Luke was freed in 1870. Hannah Allen, his wife, she was indentured to him. 94 years later, 1964, I lived to see it. Women were given equal rights by Title VII. Prior to that time, a woman couldn't work without the permission of her husband. She couldn't have a bank account in her name. If she had a passport, it was in the name of her husband, Mrs. John Doe. 1964 came, Thiokol test was successful. Thiokol reached back and got that contract, and guess what? These people you see on this wall, it's not that they lost their life, it's the life that they lived. They moved forward after civil rights and equal rights into modern America. This is the first workforce, or some of the pioneers, the first time a woman could get a job earning an hourly wage in American industry. You got 21 women dead and 8 men. The 21 women, guess what? They were the manufacturers of the munitions for Vietnam. There was 60 of them in that building that morning. One of them was my mother. Then you had Miss Liza Rudolph out there. And you had Robert Rudolph out there. We had blood on the ground out there. Thomas's own blood. And I'm telling you, it is important that we speak up and we tell America that you're not giving these people anything. They earned their place in American history. When you read sometimes, what will you do when your soul is required? These people stood up. And just because a person don't speak doesn't mean that they can't talk. Jim Crow's law took the speech from a woman. The men were working themselves into the ground because they were responsible for that woman and their family. When they talk about a woman marrying well, even though she could have a college degree, but if she didn't marry the right man, hey, the success of that woman depended on who she married. And when they got married, they was a team. When the high sheriff came to the house, they didn't ask for the woman. When the high sheriff came to the house, they asked for the man of the house. And he stepped forward. If there was no man in the house, they went to the elder in the family. They went to Aunt Dyson, okay? They went to Mariah. They went to Hannah. You see what I'm saying? So this is how American society was. It was a parity. After 1964, these people stepped up and moved forward and moved us into the modern America. They earned a wage. These women they got credit. They bought houses. They bought cars. They sent their kids to college. They wanted to give them that better life. You have Cecilia Alberta. She was the fastest manufacturer at Thiokol. Plant blew up at 10:53 a.m. She was on that line that morning. Why? She had finished, this was quota work. If she had 100 trip plans to make, she was done by first break. But the unity of that workforce was, I'm not successful unless you're successful. So she came back to the line to help her fellow co-workers meet their quota. She did it every day. Miss Ethel Banks, that's Jerry Banks' mother. I love Miss Ethel. And let me tell you something. Miss Ethel Banks made my baptism gown. The most important day of my life, the day that I accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, this woman made my baptism gown. She used to be a school teacher. She left teaching school to go to Thiokol because there was more money at Thiokol. These people were killed when minimum wage was $1.60 an hour. They were making 185, 225, 227, Miss Simmerlou, an hour. You see what I'm saying? So that's why they could get credit. They couldn't get a credit card to 1974, but they could get credit, buy houses, buy cars. You have Annie Boo and Gloria Boo. That's the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. So Booty lost both of them, his wife and his mama, on the same day. That's a lot of pressure. You have Miss Bertha Walker Brunswick. Now, Mrs. Brunswick, Mrs. Banks, when I went in to be baptized, I went into that small house. They dressed me that morning and said, hey, you get out there in the water, there's certain things that's expected of you. They laid down those rules. So when I got out in the water, you had the deacon, but you had Reverend Mizell out there in trouble the waters. And the reason that I was baptized at Enterprise is because Thomas' daughter, granddaughter, and all of them were members of Enterprise Baptist Church. That's my first relationship with Enterprise. Betty Dawson Birch and Charles Birch, sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Charles had made it to the gate. If you look back here, there's 4 digits. This is the work ID for Thiokol. He went to that gate, the plant had blown up. He went to the gate, gave his 4 numbers. When he found out Betty wasn't there, he went back to get her, and that's how he was killed. These men wanted these women to succeed. James Chapman, Jack Cox, those 2 guys were company men from Marshall, Texas. They had private lawyers. Y'all don't know, these people, they went in, they got some of their co-workers got killed, 100 of them were injured. They fought the federal government 17 years. 17 years. But those 2 guys had private lawyers. Those lawyers found that memo that Thiokol didn't get till 3 weeks afterwards. These people died not of no fault of their own. They were working, making trip flares. They were told that the trip flare material was flammable. Fire break out 2 and 3 times a shift. The women would run out. The men would come in and put the fire out, give the all clear, and the women would rush back to making their munitions. They were on a quota base, okay? The women in 132, and that's the building that blew up. 132 blew up and took 3 other buildings with them. That's how powerful it was. I was standing in Camden High School that day and I went to get up and the ground shook. I mean, it shook like an earthquake. That explosion shook from Gainesville, Florida to Savannah. 56,000 trip flares. About 800 tons of magnesium. Magnesium is C7 and not C2. So these people died of no fault of their own. They went to glory and touched the face of God and did not know why. But their job was to make the munitions for Vietnam. Yvonne Conley, the woman in between the 2 guys, she was from Savannah, but she lived here in Brunswick. Husband never got paid a dime. Old man Conley is still down here on Route 40, trying to survive. His daughter was sick. His wife was killed. The man was stunned, and he's still stunned. May Hazel Davis from St. Mary's, the scalpels got to her family. The workers and the family sued Thiokol. Thiokol got eliminated because of workman comp. They sued our government for $700 million. Judge Lawrence, which you can see it back here in the literature, he awarded them $465 million. They waited old man Judge Lawrence out. And they gave the people $25 million after 17 years of fighting. And that meant that the lawyers got paid. But just wait a minute, wait a minute. Some of these workers never got paid. Miss Bertha Brunswick family never got paid a dime. Okay? You got the engineer from Alabama. He survived Vietnam and came here and was killed at Thiokol. He's the engineer. Never got a dime. Not a dime. They say some of these people, oh, you filed after the statute of limitation. Now, when we had 9/11, and I'm going to tell you something. When you don't act right, there's a cost. Plant blew up 1971, February 3rd, 1971. Our people were fighting the NAACP, a young lady by the name of Deanna Massey. She went to Atlanta, got some NAACP lawyers to represent the blacks. Some of the whites never did get an attorney, and when they did figure out what was going on, they filed after the statute of limitation, they got eliminated. Then the scalpers went around, like Ms. Davis' family, only got $25,000. They bought her out, bought her family's right to sue. This is why Sheriff Smith, we call him the high sheriff, he told them, get out of my county. In this county, I don't know where y'all know what the deal is. The deal is this. In Camden County, Georgia, the highest and most powerful person is the high sheriff. Okay? I don't care what nobody tell you. In Camden County, it is the sheriff of Camden County. And you can believe me, it is the leading men in every family that's got the power. If you don't believe it, get into trouble and see won't they find still to this day the man of the house, the elder of the family, they're going to go to that person and say, hey, I want you to tell Janie to go sit down. Okay? And when Janie get that word, trust me, Janie ain't going to buck. Janie going to go sit down. This is Camden County. This is our home, and that's how it's run. Okay? Now, and our people, Mildred Davis, she was from Blackshare. These people were fighting February 3rd. The government wouldn't give. They had all the money. They lost 5 times. But in the brighter day, this happened in 71. It made the 6 o'clock news. It made all these newspapers. They weren't concerned about these people. They were women. Most of them were black. But it don't matter where a person starts in life. They began this meager beginning. But the work that these people gave by the testament of the Vietnam veteran will tell you this. Their work saved millions of lives. And on top of that, their work helped in the liberation and bringing democracy to millions of South Vietnamese people. Nobody gave them nothing. They earned their place in freedom in this world. And so we want them to be nominated for the Presidential Freedom Award or the Congressional Gold Medal. Those are the 2 highest honors that a civilian can receive. They lost their lives, but they lived a life of hope and inspiration prior to dying. You have Howard Ellis. His son was the first person to go to the NFL. He went to Green Bay. This man was from Philadelphia, and he moved here. Don't let nobody fool you. This is not a local issue. These people came from all across America to this little place to support the military. You got the 2 sisters from Florida, Betty Jean Roberts, May Alice Taylor, both of them from Florida. They was killed here. You got the 2 guys from Marshall, Texas. You got the engineer from Alabama. Mildred Davis and Yvonne Conley rode to work that morning with a woman by the name of Karen Jordan. Karen Jordan was from Ohio. When them 2 girls got killed, Karen went back to Ohio. That's where she is right now today. I mean, I know where our people are at. So this is not a local issue. Just like the military they served, they came from all walks of life. They came from all across the country. Our men were fighting a war in Vietnam. They call it a conflict. That was a war. They made the 81 millimeter, which you see right here. That 81 millimeter, the 81 millimeter lead person was Lois Moody. That's Miss Moody right there. That's the 81 millimeter. Miss Lois Moody is still living in right over in folks. She come up in here all the time. Okay? The trip players, my mother was on the assembly line. She worked in M132. Her testimony is on our Facebook page. We had the young people reenact it. It is very important that you know your history. People say, oh, these people were illiterate. They were this, they were that. That's not true. You have the valedictorian of Ralph Bunche High School, Annie Hutchinson James, smart girl. She was a valedictorian, and if anybody has gone to Ralph Bunche, that's the equivalent of going to any private school in America. You not only learn how to read and write, you can make a whole dinner, and you could build a house by the time you came out of Ralph Bunche. Cheryl Sullivan was a student in college. Miss Ethel Banks, like I said, was a school teacher. You got an engineer up here. You got two company men. How can these people be illiterate? They graduated high school or they were college graduates. It's plain and simple. Me, myself, I started school at Ralph Bunche. Some of these people were the upperclassmen of Ralph Bunche. They were my idols. I didn't watch TV. I watched them. If they could do it, I could do it too. So they're important. So we want this exit off of I-95 dedicated to the memory of these 29 people plus one. That plus one came in 1973. Now, the amazing thing about Thiokol, there's some very amazing history here. Number one is, even though these people lost their life and 100 people were injured, and still today, you have people suffering, like Miss Dolores Butler. She can only turn her head. Like Teresa Lane, yeah, she live up there on the other side of Savannah, but she has to come to Mayo Hospital because of the way her feet were burnt that day. That woman is still suffering. And we as a country gave South Vietnam $123 million and went over and pledged another $90 million for the cleanup of our cluster bombs. Our president mentioned their broken bone, broken body people. What about our people? We got people burnt. We have people with broken bones, missing arms, missing legs. But we have to stand up and tell the truth. And these are our people. We want to be remembered. The exit dedicated to them. We want Harris Bluff Road renamed for the 600 workers. Now, I've been told that we got to pay for the 4 signs and the 4 posts. But I think it's worth it. We need $1,500. We'll have to go dig it up from somewhere. But we need to find it because they earn their place in American history. So that's the history of these people. Over here is unity. Let me tell you, when that plant blew up at 1053, all the communications was knocked out. The phones were knocked out. Sue Brown crawled out to her husband's truck. She was a firefighter. She radioed Miss Dorothy. Miss Dorothy answered that radio, and that brought all these cities to bear. That's when we talk about the grace of God. Ma and Pa jumped in the pickup truck. We didn't have I-95 finished. They had the land, because guess what? Thomas Luke land was sold for $25 an acre so that Billyville Road could come through I-95. And I'm going to tell you, Mariah was dead, but I remember Aunt Dicey called that meeting of all of her children. Mariah, she got them all together. And she told them this: if we don't sell, they're going to take it anyway. And so all those that did not agree with the selling of that land, once Aunt Dicey spoke, you ain't got nothing else to say. Because you went with the elder. And the land was sold, portions of it, and the rest was left, small portion behind. But that's the way business was handled. But I-95 was not finished until these people, the after-action report, there was a deficiency in transportation. It was ran, that emergency, along Highway 17, right there. And guess what? The Navy took command, and it's quiet around here. When you hear those blades, a whoop, 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 the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Army, they all came to bear. St. Mary's Hospital had 19 rooms, 600 workers was at that Thiokol facility. The possibility. But when Sue Brown made that radio call, all these cities came to bear. Miss Dorothy, she got that call. She sent Chief Peoples out there. Chief Peoples went out there. He'd been out there the month before. Nobody tells you that 111 went down the month before. But there's documentation on the wall. 111 went down. Chief Peoples had been out there. But when he got out there that day, he saw something he'd never seen before. He radioed Miss Dorothy back and told her, bring everybody. We may not need them, but you got to bring them and get them here now. But Fernandina is a very good city. I love Fernandina. We was in Fernandina yesterday. Fernandina got that call from Camden County. Fernandina put up a distress, and that distress got intercepted by Jacksonville. Fernandina activated their hospital, got Yulee, came across the Blue Bridge. The mayor of Jacksonville called Mayor Daley, and Mayor Daley is alive today. And he would tell you, he told Tansler, listen, I got 19 beds and a possible 600 people. I need you. He said, matter of fact, we don't have I-95. Bring the Navy. And what did Tansler do? He brought Jackson Naval and Cecil Field to bear on Camden County. They flew people from the hospital, doctors and nurses, to triage down here in St. Mary's at Gilman Hospital and to the site. Okay? So you had Waycross. Waycross is the home of the fire marshals. They investigated afterwards. Savannah, let me tell you something. We are under the Swanee blood bank. We didn't have enough blood. You know what Savannah did? Not only did they stand up every hospital, which you'll see all of them over there in the compassion, Savannah police took 45 pints of blood and got the Georgia State Patrol to escort them to Brunswick to get that blood to the hospital in Brunswick. Hinesville is the home of the United States Army. They were making them trip players for the Army. They came here and went to ground with the fire department. You know why I know? Because I talked to the firemen that worked right alongside them and got their testimony. Folkestone, let me tell you something. Thiokol was smart. People didn't all have cars and stuff. So Thiokol sent a bus. Waycross, Folkestone, Jacksonville, Fernandina, Brunswick. They had a little bus pool, and people around here were carpooling. So Folkestone sent their fire department. The McCoy Jackson Hospital took in injured workers, but most of those workers came from Folkestone. Brunswick was a good neighbor. Their police and fire department came here. They had the first airlift that came out of Brunswick to bring people, and that's where the testimony comes in. Ritter was the air pilot that was made the first pickup, and he said he brought a woman out on a door, and they put her in the helicopter. He was also the helicopter person that flew those trip flares to the proving ground. Now, surely you know that him being a helicopter pilot, if he knew that this thing would explode, the trip flares, he wouldn't have flew them up there. So Thiokol didn't know, just like the workers didn't know, that there was a problem with that magnesium in the trip flares, okay? But his testimony was that the woman was saying, help me, help me. She was flailing, help me, help me. And he said, I'm trying. He radioed for people to meet them at the helipad, okay? Come, I need you. This woman is sick. And he said the next day when he went to the hospital, God had answered her prayer. She was going on. St. Mary's is the home of Gilman Hospital. Fire and police was dispatched. Darien Cox Fire Department was dispatched. Blackshare, we had 29 bodies. We didn't have enough hearse. Blackshare got with the western side of Georgia, and all of them brought their hearse to give the final rites. Woodbine is the home. Now, even though Harris Bluff is way out there, Woodbine is the home of Thiokol Chemical Plant. There is a telegram from President Nixon to Mayor Haskin, the entire nation, 3 states, 15 cities, 14 hospitals, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Army, the American Red Cross, Social Security, you name it, came to bear for this one cause. We learned emergency response. There is so much impact from what happened to these people. Every time you dial 911, you need to tell these people thank you. Okay? Because if you've ever seen, which I have it back there, Sirens in the Night, Jacksonville kept saying, stop what you're doing. You need to move the ambulances from under the funeral home. They are rolling these people for their money. They don't know how to resuscitate anybody. It's more money in burying a person than saving their life. There's nobody on the ambulances to save them. Thiokol blew up. We had 3 ambulances in the county. Ben Butler had 1 ambulance. Wayne Wright had 2 ambulances. Okay? How you think them people got to their hospital that day? Mod Pod, the pickup trucks, and the station wagon, their co-workers, the Army and the Navy, the school shut down, the school buses went to Thiokol, and everybody lined up along Harris Bluff Road. They took people and put them in their vehicles, and when they caught fire, because that magnesium, when air got to it, it caught fire, they lay them down in the ground, roll them over, pick them up, and throw them back in the car. Thiokol blew up. Sirens in the Night will show you. They went to Thiokol. Jacksonville went to Thiokol. Jacksonville got $300,000. When they got that $300,000, they moved the ambulances from under the funeral homes to under the city and the county. They put EMT technicians on the ambulances. They trained. Every city came to Jacksonville and trained. They taught America how to respond to a 911 call. You need to tell these people thank you. The deficiency in the transportation, the Navy and everybody coming in here, they was holding that land from the 60s. Trust me, they finished I-95 through Camden County. They could have done it before. So you can't get to South Florida on 95 unless you come through Camden County. So say thank you, okay? When you go into a plant that's processing chemicals, OSHA was created after Thiokol blew up. Occupational Safety Health Administration. So what you need to do is say thank you to these people right here. It was formed in 1973. And guess what? Thiokol was the same contractor that was over Challenger. 15 years almost from the date that Thiokol blew up in 1971. Challenger went up and blew up on January 30th, 1986. The trial was still going on in Brunswick. And guess what? President Reagan, I was there. He got on TV and he said, when an American citizen touched the face of God, they take a portion of us with them. That trial got stopped down in Brunswick. And 2 years later, the people got paid. But they didn't only got paid $25 million. How much you think the attorneys got? more than a third. You know, I mean, you got 100 workers, 29 people dead, and some of them dead people's families never got anything. But what we want to do is, from all of this grace that we have gotten, and we've never said thank you, we want to say thank you, God, for bringing us through it. Some of my classmates, they lost their mothers and their fathers. There was a lot of crying in my house that night, but God brought us through it. These 15 cities that stood up, Alma came here one way in the rain to get the Thiokol. Jessup brought through 3 units in the rain. Jacksonville put everything they had on the line. Ma and Pa did everything they could. But that daycare center up there in Woodbine is up there for a reason. They were concerned about the children. These people here in this community, that daycare center at Ralph Bunch, Miss Emma Lou, I know my back is to you, but 832 the union gave $10,000. Thiokol gave $10,000. Gilman gave $3,000. The government came in on a 3-to-1 grant and put up $69,000. They baked cakes, they washed cars, they raffled off a Cadillac, $10 a ticket. I wanted a ticket, but I didn't have $10, but they got it done. Within, the plant blew up in February, July. There's the pictures back there. There's the proclamation up top. Every mayor, every commissioner signed that proclamation with the backing of that union, and they got it done. So why in the world now can't we get this exit done? And if it costs $1,500 or $2,000, I know some of y'all, my credit is good. Loan me some money so I can get that done. But I mean, either way, you know, I mean, I'll bake you a pie. Anyway, but why not give them the Presidential Freedom Award? Not give it to them, they earned it. You know, why not? Congress can give them the Congressional Gold Medal. The protesters are going into the Vietnam New History Museum. Why these people can't go in there? If the protesters that threw eggs at us, why can't they go in there? Why can't they be recognized? Yes, these are the people that believed in us. They didn't see color. They didn't see woman or man. Those men protected these women with their life. They didn't back up. Every time a fire broke out, they went in. But the 21 women were the manufacturers. The men laid their life down that morning. That's what this is about. We're all one people. There's a reason why Faces of Patriotism faces off with unity. The entire region, when God said, come forward, trust me. Trust me. When God says come forward, mama, daddy, nobody else needs to stand in the way, because you get that little jiggling and you got to go. You got to do it. They were one unit. So we want to put everybody together. The 600 workers, we want to put the 15 cities, the 3 states, the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the 14 hospitals. We want to put them on I-95, on Purple Heart Trail in a national park. We only asked, and I asked every owner along I-95 in Camden County, some of them got 4,000 acres, and I just said, listen, I need 60 acres. 40 we're going to develop, and 20 we're going to quiet. And they said, well, Janie, why you want to do that? I said, well, you know, these are the true believers and followers of Jesus Christ. Everybody involved, all the firefighters and police, they may not, these that are still living may not know it, but these people here knew it, okay? We want to quiet 20 acres because we don't want nobody putting no liquor store, right? Jam up on the door while students are coming to study, while families are coming in to be inspired and enriched about who we are. I've traveled all around around the world, and when you look at America, when you look at America, and it's sitting out there, you got the Pacific Ocean, you got the Atlantic Ocean, you got the Gulf of Mexico. It's not these bodies that divide us from the rest of the world. It is that desire to do right. We have a lot of empathy. Now, we go astray a lot, but that's what divides us from the rest of the world. It's our heart and our desire. It's simple. So we want to build this national park, 120 jobs on site, which will produce 600 to 800 off site. National Park pulls in billions of dollars every year, but that 60-mile radius around it, those people benefit. I know that there are young people here that become educated here and they want to remain here, but we have to give them something. So in order to give them something you think is monetary, we need to inspire them and help them to stay with their families. Like we are a family, and I want us to remain together. I'm not going to preach at you no more. Y'all are welcome to go to each one of these different outlets and hear the history. There are some actual artifacts, but in the new museum, each one of the cities, Woodbine, Waycross, each one of them will bring in their first response. Like, if you look back here, we have a picture. We have a picture of the 1958 fire truck. I got that fire truck, but I need that fire truck refurbished. That's Woodbine fire truck. Chief Kelly was the second fire truck there. Pull that red, white, and blue book off the top shelf up there. Kingsland has theirs over at fire station number 5. It is beautiful. First fire truck on site. Chief people still living. His fire truck is at fire station number 5. Kingsland will have their place. Brunswick will have their place. Fernandina, Yulee, every hospital will have their place. But I'm telling you, in that education center, I need to get that 17-year court case and everything. I need to get that and record it. Because in that 17 years, there's a discipline. There's a reason why when we had 9/11, those people went into court. That mass tort litigation was written for these people here. It was already in place. Mass tort litigation was rewritten by the Justice Department. So if we can have all of these benefits now, go up and down 95, down 911, we got OSHA, we got mass tort litigation, this safety that we have. And on top of that, we were taught how to live and work together. These men respected these women. So why not give these people their place in American history? Why not do that? We can do that. But we have to give voice to it. We have to be true to who we are. Any questions? Yes?
Yesterday when I came in here, and like today, when I first come in, and maybe the children, but the first thing caught my attention, would you explain the uniforms that they are wearing and what was the purpose of them when you come in the door there?
Oh, okay. What we have here is you have the CS operations. This was a deterrent gas, okay? Now, my mother came home with that gas in her clothing, okay? And even with careful cleaning, it's not done. But when we had training in Alabama, you had to go through the gas chamber. This gas just released all liquids. You know, you're crying and everything. But it's a deterrent gas. This timid operation, this paper suit, this is actually one from Thiokol. And that was for agriculture, you know, for the fields and everything. Now, they did the 81 millimeter. The 81 millimeter was used to like clear tree lines and as a defense. But those trip flares, when you hear the soldiers say, hey, they say saved our lives. You put down the trip wire, it's dark, they come along and trip the wire, it goes up, the flare goes up, lights up the whole area. When you hear the helicopter pilots say, hey, you know, I made them think that it was a lot of us. I lit up the entire sky and played a lot of loud music and noise. When those helicopter pilots were shot down, this was their signal. And if you go back into the Thiokol exhibit commitment, you will see it is tightly packed, the shuck that was at the top of each one of the trip flares. So, I mean, Georgia has come a long way. The governor has recognized the Thiokol workers. The city of Jacksonville mayor has recognized them. But there's a lot of things that's lacking in the Camden County history. They reduced them to 29 people and 100 people injured, but they don't show their faces. They don't tell the story of their life. They were willing to work. And even after all the things that the workers went through, all the trials and tribulations of running from fires and losing their mates, it ended up that they went back and continued making the munitions to the end of the war. So that's dedication. And we need to do whatever we can for our people.
Let me explain to them how we dress.
Okay, go ahead, Miss. Miss Emma Lou is a survivor of the explosion.
All right. Whenever we came in, we had to take off our clothes, put on the coverall, then you put on the paper suit, you put on your boots, then you have this gas mask. What we do, you put the gas mask on, then you have to get a towel and put it around there. Then you got to tape all this around so that gas won't get to you. You have to tape it all around here. Then you put your gloves on. You got to tape the gloves on. You put on your boots. You got to tape that around also. Now you have these wetsuits. This is a little thin one, but we have like rain suits. You have to put that on if you're going to need a mixer building. And you have to do the same thing, tape up. After you get ready to go home, you got to change out. You got to take a shower before you leave. You have to go in and take off all your equipment, take a shower, then you put on your clothes to go home. Now, all those years I was out there, I never did get burned because it'll burn you up. Until we got ready to wash down the buildings, we were through it, all the CS and stuff. And I messed around and got wet. And all this got blistered. But if you don't get wet, you'll be all right. But I got wet and we was cleaning it out. But we had to put on all of this to work out there. And now after we got through it, all the CS, and we were doing the 81 millimeter, we didn't have to put all of this gas mask and stuff on. Like I said, not unless you're going to need a mixer building. Which I was one of the mixers one time. And all you have to do is put on your coveralls, your hat, your boots, and that was it.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Since you actually was there, did you notice any ailments of the people who actually worked there? Some plants, people thought they was okay, but many years later, like my uncle was in a plant, and ailments followed everybody that was in there. Have you all noticed anything that was different, or kidney trouble, anything like that from you all that worked there?
Well, some of the people got sick, but hey, you didn't know what was wrong with them. You probably had an idea, but no one didn't say anything.
It is what it is.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I personally would like to thank the curator for that beautiful lecture. I've seen a lot of lectures, and I think she's done it so superbly. It's as if though she is an expert in it, and I just and just full of knowledge. And I just want to thank her for all the work that she has done for this museum. And I believe that, and in fact, I know this because I talked to some people like last night, and I interviewed a young lady this morning. They don't even know what's in this building. And so I'm hoping that I'm going to post this on Boston G.B.R. on my YouTube. I have 1,400,000 views around the world. And I want to do my part to try to help let people know about this, because I'm retired military. I was in the Air Force for 21 years, and I didn't know nothing about this. I was ignorant. But I'm not ignorant anymore. Ignorant is not a bad thing if you got enough knowledge, enough information inside of you to get up and educate yourself. So I have been educated. I'm no longer ignorant in this subject. Thank you all very much.
Mama, she worked out there for 6 weeks, and she was killed. But this is Mama, Bertha Walker Brunswick.
This is my family.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I have a brother and a sister-in-law.
Please,
Betty
please.
Birch and Charles Birch. Charles Birch was employed on in 7 days. He went to the road safe and thought about his sister-in-law and went back and got trapped. I clocked out that morning at 7 o'clock. Why I wasn't there? They only changed my shift a couple of days before that.
This is my sister.
Say it loud, ma'am.
This is my sister, G.B.R.
These are real people, y'all. These not just pictures. These real people.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law was the youngest to get killed. She was 19 years old.
What's their name?
Betty R. Dawson Birch. They left a 9-month-old baby here for us to raise. And God took him home on the 12th of last month.
I stopped him. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Everybody got killed." I said, "Oh no, everybody couldn't have gotten killed." He said, "Yes, they did. Everybody at 132 was in the explosion, got killed." But that's what he thought. Everybody else thought that too, but everybody didn't get killed.
And who you say he was to him?
That was his daddy working out there. He was a supervisor.
Thank you.
I was young when you died. I don't think I'm born yet. You said what, 71?
71.
71, yeah, coming 76. But I remember my dad telling me all the stories about Thiokol, and then I had the privilege of working out there for about 2 years myself. It was bare crop, more safer, and a lot of things that changed by that time. But just the memories, and hearing Miss Emma Lou and some of the ones who were there and still here, you know, and talking about it. So it's always very dear to my heart to hear the Thiokol story. Very dear to my heart. Lost a lot of good people. People I never met. Never met.
But you meet their children.
That's right.
And you meet you meet their relatives, because it's children that come over here to what is that, Eagle Wing? Yeah. And they came in, and the Sunday school teacher, I was looking. I looked at him. I said, "He looks familiar." Lily Bell Spell's great grandson. You know, like you know, my nieces and nephews, they are the great grandchildren of Ethel Banks, because my nephew is married to her granddaughter. So you know, it's a lot of people over the years, and you look at these children, it always comes back to you.
Now, I have a nephew, he passed now, but that was on his birthday. He was a supervisor. His birthday was February 3rd. So I told him, I said, "Someday you celebrate," because he had to pick up the people that was burned and deceased and all that. But he had just come back from Vietnam himself, because he had got shot there. He had a Purple Heart. So he knew what to do. And that's the only thing that saved my sister and my niece. He took them and pushed them down in the ditch and told them to lay flat. Because a lot of those people got killed from the devils and stuff that was flying, all the concrete and stuff. But he made them lay flat in the ditch. And that's what saved those two.
What was his name?
Arthur Lee.
Oh, Arthur Lee. Yeah.
Arthur Lee.
Yeah, he was a supervisor.
I was asking her about how much they got paid an hour because of all the equipment. $1.85. No hazardous.
I told her I was a high paid one because I was in the mixer.
So she made $2.
$2.20. Yeah, I thought I'd make it big money. Wow. But after we got the union in, things changed. Right. And then you start getting hazard pay and all of that. Got a union.
Well, we did this June of 2016. We've been kind of working on it since 2013 when I discovered the children.
So what you children back there watching? What you doing?
What's a vehicle? So I jumped right on. And I went to see. And there it was on the internet, the explosion. But they had, I remember the second man, he's got to go back there to see. So we work with the genealogy people in Georgia to get all of that straight. Personally, that all yeah, but it's still told to be 20, right? But they put it up.
She was laying out and they showing dead people come and she was like, hold it.
Well, you were out there, right?
Yeah.
The engineer's wallet that he had on him when he was killed. And have y'all ever seen a Bench's J.C. Penney's card? See, this is his J.C. Penney's and Wilco card. Excuse me. And his corporate cards and his this is all the stuff that was in his wallet when he was killed. Yeah, the engineer. And this is what's so fascinating. See, he made the deposit at the bank,
He went over and got his tooth done or examined on the 1st of February. On the 2nd, he went back and got his tooth pulled, right? So he wasn't supposed to be to work on the 3rd, but he went to work because he got that call the night before. See, that's why y'all need to talk to Barbara Rudolph. Barbara Rudolph was on that night shift. She was in 132. She know what happened, but she's resisting me. Yes. And I'm saying, come forward. You know some things. You see how he brought, Charles Monac brought his wife from Alabama? The ticket was only $62. So, you know, it's a lot. There's his library card. I mean, but look at that J.C. Penney's card. Down at the bottom in real color.
I bought the 24.
Yeah.
I bought pets.
So see, we actually got the work ID of the workers. We got a union book. That's a newspaper article. And see, this is the 81 millimeter. They made the 40 and the 60 millimeter. But this black woman was the lead. And this is her actual book. Inside this book, that's how we found out who was working 81 millimeter. Miss Moody from Folkestone. This is documented in her book. You see what I'm saying? So it's a lot of stuff that these people have. See that list of workers right there? There's a lot of stuff that these people have, you know. And when they say Thiokol was shut down for 6 months, that's not true. Plant blew up February the 3rd. Back to work order, March the 5th. If you don't return and make yourself available, you will be terminated. And people in the hospital, like Miss Hopkins, they got notified that letter was delivered to them in the hospital.
That's a suit right there.
Yeah.
That's a suit right there. Because every time you sit like that, you got hurt on day job.
Yep. And then here's a letter from Miss Dorothy Mornack. And that's Miss Dorothy was the engineer's wife. Now, this is when you see her testimony on our website, Miss Dorothy says that her husband Charles, now Charles rode to work with her that day because he got that call from M32 the night before that they was having trouble. So he came into work. He checked out 132 because he was engineer and safety man, right? And here he is standing in the damage of 111. The month before, here's building 111, talking about it going to the ground. That newspaper came out February the 1st. Plant blew up February the 3rd. But Miss Dorothy said on the morning of February the 3rd, he knew it was a problem. He got up, he went to the plant, he checked out. When he came to her at the warehouse, she was packing canisters in these big crates. And he said, I'm going home now. Because he had checked out everything. He said, I'm going home. And she said, okay. And as he walked away, he said, wait a minute. I'm going to Timid, and I'm going to check the Timid building. Okay? So he came back and he kissed her on the cheek. And she said for some reason, she turned as he was walking away to see him walk away. And she went back to loading canisters. And she heard a little noise a while later and a disruption. And she said, in a few minutes, the next thing she knew, she was being slammed. That explosion happened and she got slammed completely across the room, the warehouse, and she hit that wall. And she went to crawling, trying to get out. Okay, once she crawled out the building, somebody picked her up. They had stolen somebody else's vehicle and put her in the vehicle because everybody had their keys in their cars that were on site. So they put her in that vehicle, and she said as they were driving away, right? Where's that picture at? There's a picture of a bus. Yeah, there's a picture of a bus. She said when she looked over, she saw her husband's shoes, his feet under that bus. So when you hear Harold Anderson's testimony, where he says the women yelled, fire, fire, and they ran to the door of M132, and he said him and the guy was together, right? And when they reached and the guy opened the door, for some reason, Harold was behind him. He fell face forward and fell down. When that door opened, the fireball came, right? But he was safe because he was down on the ground, right? But the fireball came before the explosion happened. So when he opened and the oxygen went in and the fireball came, Harold was on the ground. Monet got blown. When the explosion happened, he got blown all the way over, right? And Harold, when he did get up after the fireball to run, he was blown in the ditch. He fell in the ditch. Monet went under the bus. So he died later that night. But, you know, we have the actual artifacts here. Now, this is the shuck that goes on the trip flare. And the women talk about packing it out. Them 60 women that morning, everybody did everything they could to save those women. I mean, you know, you don't have no telephone, you don't have no internet. Without all of that, yeah, they were the manufacturers. The men went in and saved them. You know how people have strife on their job now about men and women and this and that? They didn't have that problem at Thiokol. Those men wanted those women to succeed. The men were working in the timber business and this and that. But with these women entering the workforce, they created the two-income family. They transformed this region from plantation and domestic work into industrial economy. Because women used to leave on a Sunday evening, go to Jekyll and Amelia Island, stay a whole week cleaning cabins, and get less than $10. Or they would go to Brennan Farm, where they were picking cucumbers and tomatoes and stuff like that. For a whole week, they went to clean cabins. That was a lot of money back then, though. Or they worked at CPAC, and when they peeled the shrimp and stuff, the way they got paid was the amount, the weight of what they had per pound. That determined what they got paid. I tried to work at Brennan Farm. I liked their cucumbers. Some women told me, get out the field. Go study your books. Because they felt that education was the only way of improving your life. You know, but the whole thing is, a woman had to do what? Marry well. If you married Joe Bump, you became Mrs. Joe Bump. I mean, so you had to marry somebody that was about something. You see what I'm saying? And that's what this whole entire system is about. But our people stepped out there on their faith. They knew that they had some skills. When you talk to the teachers from Thiokol, the white women that taught these people, they said Thiokol told them that the women was illiterate, just like I told you. Because a person don't talk, don't mean that they can't talk. Their speech was just taken from them because of the parity in American society was set up like that. You know, what will they do if we give them a little bit of freedom? But they messed around and tucked in Title VII. Lord have mercy, after 94 years, and I lived to see it. And was so, you know, people kept saying something is coming. They could feel it. Be prepared. Go to school. Do this, do that. And we did. We believed. And when somebody told you that you were somebody, you believed it. People didn't tell you, oh, you gonna fail, you gonna this, you gonna that. They tell you, listen, dream and dream big, work hard, and you will make it. You know, I don't understand failure. I don't understand that. You know, because we were born in a position. In a position, you know. I mean, God didn't make us flies or birds or rats or nothing. God made us people. We were born in a position to take domain over this other stuff. So all you got to do is just stay your position. I got to stay my position till I get to that cemetery. It's simple as that. But I'm going to live every day till I die. So when I get there, y'all ain't got to say nothing, but you know that fool lived till she died. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but I want to hold my position, you know, and people say, such and such and so-and-so. What? Really? I'm going to hold my position. You know, there is no failure point with me. You know, it's like, I'm not intended to do that. I was born in the image of an almighty God. I'm special, you know, and everybody around me is special, you know, and they need to be respected. So why can't we respect our blood? Why can't we respect these people? These people were the upperclassmen. Ralph Bunch, let me tell you, when Hattie them did something, child, please. If they did it, I could do it too. If Edie did something, I could do it. Yeah. If Betty or some of them did, oh. Now let me tell you, they could go to school, they could bake a cake, they could look at something in a book, and Friday night you see them stepping out in it because they done made it. So I'm like, come on. And when Alexander King pulled me from out behind them bushes, I was hiding, y'all. I was so tired of getting beat up. Lord knows I was getting beat up. I think I was the only child from the Dicey Woods that could not fight and was scared to talk. Didn't want nobody. I hid behind that bush because they were beating me down every day. Alexander King came along and pulled me from behind the bush and told me, you got to stand up for yourself. You got to do this and that. I looked up at him like, great that you were saying this. Okay. You big. I'm little. But then he grabbed me and took me up there to Mr. Western bus and pushed me out there. I've been fighting ever since. No. And when he got killed in Vietnam in 1969, it did something to me. But when they put that monument up, that Vietnam Memorial, I kept calling the Pentagon. Did you get to the K's yet? Did you get to the K's? Because, you know, he's listed Alexander King Woodbine. I said, I don't care. And I was like 600-700 miles away when it was time for that monument to be dedicated. I drove all night, just stopping to get gas. But when they dedicated that Vietnam Memorial Monument, and I was there, I was counting the panel down. I count all the way down to 51 and count all the way down till I got to his name. I said, oh, there he is. There he is. I'm telling you, that's the way it is with me. He gave me hope, and I appreciated him for it.
On behalf of the Lucas Hill Rudolph family, we want to make this donation to you.
Thank you.
Hope that this helps meet your project goals.
Oh, thank you.
I personally will be donating at a later date.
Thank you.
I appreciate what you did. We all do.
Oh, thank
you. Did a fantastic job today. You are walking and talking. Nobody do it like I know that.
The children they fought. They didn't want to come here. But after they got here, they said, oh, we enjoyed that.
But you know, it's like our children, you know, we had so much. And I'm so grateful. Y'all have to know now that this family, and I want all of y'all to know, ain't no shame in my game. My mama was what? 14? And they talk about take a village. Baby, everybody from Aunt Dicey and sister, Miss Bertha, Miss Buckhannon, Miss Proctor, blue, green, yellow. I never went hungry. I never went without any clothes. I always had shoes. That's why I said, hey, only thing I have is my name, and I try to be true to that and the position that God, you know, brought me into this world. But everybody saw to it that I made it.